It's my immense privilege to introduce Colin Channer, whose sonic and literary landscapes continually challenge the bounds of language, rhythm, and environment. Colin Channer was born in Jamaica and educated there and in New York. His 10 books as a fiction writer, poet, and editor include Consul, a finalist for a 2023 New England Book Award. His prose and poetry have appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic, Bomb, The Poetry Review, Harvard Review, Conjunctions, Agni, Prairie Schooner, Virginia Quarterly, and other venues. This year, Colin Channer was named Rhode Island's 7th Poet Laureate. Recent honors also include a 2023 Barnes & Noble Writers for Writers Award from Poets and Writers magazine, a 2022 Cullman Fellowship from the New York Public Library, a 2019 Amy Clampitt Residency, and a 2018 Henry Merritt Wriston Fellowship from Brown University, where he is an associate professor in the Department of Literary Arts. Previous honors include a 2015 Fellowship in Fiction and a 2014 Fellowship in Poetry from the Rhode Island State Council on the Arts, and a 2010 Musgrave Medal in Literature, one of the oldest awards in the Western Hemisphere. Channer's collection, Providential, was a finalist for the 2016 OCM Bocas Award in Poetry. His anthology, Kingston Noir, was a Spectator magazine Best Book of 2012. His novel, Waiting in Vain, was a national bestseller, and in 1999 Critics' Choice selection of the Washington Post, which described it as a clear redefinition of the Caribbean novel in which the discourses of post-colonialism have been usurped by the creative assurance of reggae's aesthetic. As a monologist, Channer has appeared in New York at venues such as Joe's Pub at the Public Theater, the Duet Cultural Center at Brooklyn Public Library, the Bowery Poetry Club, and in Boston at the Wilbur Theater. A social entrepreneur, Channer is a co-founder of the non-for-profit Calabash International Literary Festival Trust and served as the organization's artistic director and board chairman from 2001 to 2012, guiding it from inception to maturity as a leading presenter of writing workshops, literary performances, publishing seminars, and film screenings, all at no cost to the public, passion being the only price of entry. The festival has been featured in Vogue, The Guardian, The New York Times, Condé Nast Traveler, The New Statesman, The Independent, and other venues. I'll preface my introduction to Channer's work with a disclaimer that I have always been intimidated by poetry, and in particular by the way poets embrace blank space. I consider myself a fiction writer, and the earliest years of my practice were motivated by a desire to fill an empty page with words. Consul, Colin Channer's latest masterpiece, feels uniquely designed to break this fear. In Consul, language is elastic, capacious, and while the poems inhabit a strong point of view, they also embody the egalitarian ethos of poetry, which is to say that in art, there is room enough for everyone. In his poem, Unconsoled, Channer writes, quote, "In some language somewhere, there has to be a word that means melancholically bewildered. This may be the genesis in every language, some sentience suspended in the desire for the known and knowable comfort of violence willed against it, this wrath a sure hurt planned for, looked to, the elision from this wanting to flight, or free fall nothing but a blurred uncertain, versus artistic slaughter in the solid hitch to post." In these lines, Channer reminds us that to refuse such artistic liberties, to not wholeheartedly embrace the pure, unbridled ecstasy of language, is to default to death, and that the meaning of art is to take the risk of engaging with life fully, wholly, in all its myriad uncertainties. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was good. Wow, now I want to meet the Colin Channer guy. Wow. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and thank you all for coming out. I've had such a wonderful time since arriving here. Students who've escorted me from building to building, just the landscape itself, and the legend of Cornell. You know, it's a wonderment to be reading at a school you never would have gotten into, you know. And I'm so grateful that you've arrived. Thank you, thank all of you. So, I'm going to read a few poems, if I can find my reading glasses. And I'll start with the first one. The only thing you need to know is that Herman Melville lived in the Berkshires, and a lot of Moby Dick was written there. And if you go to his house, you can look out and see Mount Greylock, and you can see the geological metaphor of the whale. Can you hear me? Yeah? All right, good. Spumante. Weeks diffuse into each other like they're sprayed. Jetted, they shoot certain. Days, times, doodles, kept appointments. Next is lull, pool, fading, flash, disperse. I was shook and shocked by death. Chanced upon it on a winter walk. Proof of plod for miles behind me, swept in fog. A wet so thick it blended with the snow that settled plenty on the sand. It was not yet daybreak, and I'd driven miles to walk and think. Find peace in sweat and sea racket, that ancient, wise, asthmatic sound. The light took its lazy time for lifting. In the shift, I saw a darker shaping than the gray. At 2 miles, a boat of some proportion. At 1/4 mile, a whale. Since then, I've been lamenting, moving as if held in gel. At night, I dream it, see it stretched across the rack of high tide, belly to the stars, flung shells and gravel, throat part grooved, fins unflappable, balletic flukes symmetric in their pointing, how they fused. All this in half-light. All this in sea dirge, wet air, matte toned silver. And I hunched in the hood of my parka, God-awed before Shavasana, stilled as if the glassy eye that looked to me had fixed me in a century of tintype. Agape. I've only recently discovered love of animals, well, Killy, Nan, and Rebus, friends, dogs. Now I've partly taken leave of language, have given incoherence due. I know what it's like to be mammal filled with deepest ocean sounds, oblivion, solitude, stillness intermitted by quake roar, tectonic slipping, lava fissures, ship propellers drilling, the human croons of whales. There is slave in me, fat heritage. No fluke, I'm invested with hurt. Echo of the hunted, located, natural rights redacted, meagered to resource. All is flux as I'm collapsing, love and distance, moving through the gel, my life, edging the canals of my city, clumping up its hills, memory aerosol, head in self-cloud, getting Melville as I should have, watching at him contemplate the vista from a landlocked house, hills becoming pods of transmigrating giants, Greylock, Berkshire range. There's thirst for music in this less than solid state. Ampless back in my office, I knee prop my Fender, ancient, black thing, strum it, casual, weep. Suck salt in darkness, fingers guessy, lazing up the sound. Still, something brusque runs through me, shuddered wood, that deep flesh shook, that makes string music fuse to you. The thumbing further breaks the thing in me. I know what now love is. No tentative for sure. Its incoherence, jelly analog is mine for life. The windows stay black and phlegmatic. As the air outside begins to heave with rain, I hum, thumbing, fashion something of a home, some sucker. Pulse quick, but steady as I deep dive to dub. With it comes the baleen wheeze of mouth organs, plangent blue whoop. I am dub, and dub is water. Exile, I wish you could have lived in me. Plunging, life spumante. I'd slip my hold on you like magma shot for islands every single time you breach. So, a couple years ago, a friend of mine, a neighbor, came to me and said, listen, my mother is visiting, and she doesn't speak English, and I have to go to work, and I need somebody to just spend some time with her. Could you help me out? Hey, okay. So in Venezuela, Ali is his name. Nice guy, but I was busy. So I said yes. He said, look, when you're ready, just go over, knock the door, and she will be ready. I go over, I knock the door, she opens it. I had been expecting Abuelita. She is drop dead gorgeous and my age. There's a time when you forget how old you are and you think your friend's parents are the age of your parents. So this is a poem, if I can find it. I'm particularly bad at finding poems, and I can't remember them, but I'll find it. If someone has a book, tell me what page it is. It is page 33. Yes, and here we are. Oreja. Given time, I'd know the word. But had I not done duty, sight unseen, agreed to take Alberto's madre on a walk, I would not have learned the clave beat of boots and Roman sandals on our stone canal. Blood beat, it stayed reliant as a dog or cast shadow, this sound of middle life unleashed. And we rambled, arms looped in summer's rush wind, purposeful as migrants but willfully naive, navel-gazing neovatics, acting like tense did not matter, like what next was up to belief. Sun stunned by August providence, bruised town west from where Cape Hooks brawl sea, we moved in shook cloth, hair mask, and skin atta to the brink, left downtown, saw art. From the hump emplaced museum, we looked down, light slighted. Canal turned zip in gathered frock flung off. By then discussion was finished. I'd been humbled, embarrassed. Spanish had sputtered when Caracas came up. Oh, wrecked Caracas. Bolivar's sinking galleon, Chafismo's glowing tanker run aground. The museum was chilly. We caught breath in its smug cafe. Sat thigh, spangling, leftist bereft. Sipping, thoughtful, tea, then staring past the basement of our cups. Would know the word in time. But if I'd not said yes to my friend, gone for that walk, in language made some rough, wrong turns, I would not have been there, feeling tender to texture's proletariat. The millions of slighted small words started with redundance. Ana Maria indulged. Eyes, ojos. Eyebrows, cejas. Lash, pestaña. I see her face on teacups now. She taught tazas don't have handles. In Spanish, cups have ears. So I learned to kiss, and we're among friends. So I learned to kiss very early. And in one of those ways that's not recommended. My mother was a pharmacist. My mother did not teach me. But my mother's friend did. Nurse Hansen, right? And I would say to my brother, I said, listen, does Nurse Hansen kiss funny? And he says, yes. It just feels like she's saying, oh, la, 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 in your mouth. And he goes, yeah. I says, wow. So the French kiss in the movies to me was an oh, la, la, la kiss as a child. And I saw Nurse as an adult. And what was I going to do? Put an 88-year-old alcoholic on trial? As an adult, you realize that she was going through a hard time. But, you know, poetry finds its roots in all sources. And this is a section of a longer poem, the title poem called Console. And I'm going to read it to you. Alalala, peculiar kissing, taut-felt synesthesia, scent of long hellos and shade of pink that made a helix in the mouth, weird but not wrong, those tongue greetings, good shocks they'd bring, Pentecostal shivers and stoic Anglicans we were, now here at Nurse's column, alalala, palming scabbed enamel on her noon-hot gate, warping thing, lock heavy like a Paris bridge. Nurse needs help with her toddle. Basil odor leads her from the shade, and she comes in patient revelation, skin like her crotons, face cross-sectioned cabbage rose. To me, I'm no strange arrivant, but reliably myself. Boy who hustled hug-ups from his mother's friends, alalala. She asks if I am the chap who brings the time. It's not owed to anybody being recalled. Alalala, incoherence, lurking music in the mouth. So my mother, who was Nurse's good friend, remains an unmanageable, cantankerous woman. And she's proud of it, you know, and I wouldn't change her for any other mother. She's a mother I have. And she's very complicated. My mother is a very dark woman who married a very light-skinned man because she thought it would increase her children's life chances in a post-colonial society where shadism was fundamental as much as racism is, and very likely will be for some time. So she married my father, who was an alcoholic, and he was a policeman who wanted to be a priest, an Anglican priest. But his brother told him, you know, if you go to seminary, but you don't get a church, you don't have a job and you don't get paid. And he stepped back and sized up my dad, who was 6'4", and said, let me see your feet, My dad showed him and his feet weren't flat. He said, yeah, you could be a cop. So my father became a policeman. My mother was a pharmacist. My mother is much more educated than my father. And would remind him, even though he needed no reminding. And this is a poem about, well, it's all about me. It's about my mother, right? It's called Shunting from Dakar to Casamance. 1. A father takes it as his job to order, rank the powers in the house. So the manor yard could slice the crotons with the cutlass how he gauged it, but couldn't dark his khaki-wearing self onto the porch. There the woman who did pressing eased a drink to sun from shelter through the grillworks' diamond gaps, sumptuous cold water or beverage, but always in glass. For plastic it was certified held germs. So all like that the outside mouth can't wet the people good plastic things. So glass it was, or condom tasting water from the hose. So rank began with who was most land close. Even in a house like ours, no great design to it, a box of slabs schemed out on Old Horse Farm, and a bygone orange grove where slavery kept imagination ligatured to bias more than law. My father's skin was pale beige watered Scotch. My mother's blood was part maroon, she used to boast. Should kids be embarrassed by the grown-ups they become? To us, mid in class and tone, our mother's brag said, yes, I was inked wicked, had a story with an opening in the bush, phantom skull cave in comics, drive-in newsreels, sunk eyes, zinc ribs, bloat, tufted hair, guerrillas or gorillas at war. She top-ranked my father, whom she called in public dunce police, and when he was demoted further through divorce, she just straight ruled. Her white tunic made her handsome, her laughter lit dispensaries, brought mint coolness to damp wards, but home, she ran it like a capo, charismatic, loving, then would punch you if you fucked up like a thug. If she caught you in a lie, she'd call you to the night porch. You'd gauge the cutlass-ordered croton's silhouette, the argyle pattern grill, then out of air, that slow bloom menthol marking where she slumped. You trembled when she started. Mr. Bitch, too. How it goes with me. C calls and I go to it, not obedient, with the taut awareness of the archer whose hurt fusillade, bluster call of notes, or when the cellist looks up, sees conductor's eyelids droop, and titivates the bow. It's a string thing, this hurt. Tendon wound, not muscles bound. And what draws it out of me a little is the big resilience, ocean of whatever color, cutting itself again and again, salt already rubbed into its wounds. A posture comes with this witness. Spine believe it is its doing, but my tendons know. Sometimes they lie to the ligaments. So when I see a boat way out, I feel if I had the pomegranate switch I used to knot with sisal as a boy, something sonorous would drain from a body flung to deck, shocked by whittle arrow on the far skyline, shocked as I was when she'd summon, and for fuck-ups forgotten, licks would fletch my ass. 3. When I leave her after visits, and we hug in Stamford's near-sea cold, I'm startled always that she is small by her skin's flatness versus memory, a confusing timbre, lost sheen tone. The lobby of her pricey condo is awash with all the foolery rising tidal every time we meet. She always says, I love you, a habit picked up on the way to 85. I'm always shocked by change and aging. On the long drive up the coast, through towns with hope hollowed, linked by some took-for-granted bridge, I regard with pleasure that endures the tall blonde grass of autumn, in winter fields that float on fog and snow, summer and the Boston-bound cellars on the metal malecon between highway and beach, spring's floral glory, all New England variegated like the crotons ordered by the manor yard to euphemize our fence. I console myself sometimes with pictures, her lingo carried over to my home, mean streets, Goodfellas, gangs of New York, Scorsese odes to order, belonging, violence, evangelistic, arch retorts, dead body tableaus, virtuosic shootouts, first chair gunmen in death chamber, all those raised neck strings. When she calls with tender need to ask if I'm safe, how come I didn't call? I don't. Wonder if she'll figure how my not call is summons, how one summoned, how differently she talks. Sometimes as she pats from range to guest room, our voices echo, fray as she draws us once again into the shell she'd been husked from mollusky in a village by a shore. There, a nameless river close to where they've built a sandals now with gouache and aqua sea. Near there, her squat beige mother cast her down. She never loved me. Not at all. My own mother cussed me black. I knew her, Sister Lynn, Miss Minto, Grandma, always nice to me. 4, shunting from Dakar to Casamance, I stopped along a coast, got out, cocked heels on the hood to get tendon stretched. I love driving, real driving, stick shifts and curves and herds of a sudden, turning roads to furry ponds, the unreliability of shafts and pistons, thus reliance on my ears to suss which betrayal of bearings, rings, or rods and gears may come. I inhabit vehicles like a mollusk. I don't drive cars, I put them on. Armored, I approach the world. That time in Casamance, I was morose. In Petit Casa, I'd eaten brilliant at a cafe run by whites, and guilt could not console me from a salad's poised, insistent tart, leaves, some unknown to me, spooned with unremakable vinaigrette. All outside the eatery, my mother, shape, skin, hair, smile, low bridge nose, slight eyes. Like the coast of New England, there were many rivers being seduced by dreams of being sea, and they moved with purpose for the interview, while mangroves stayed above the drama like old heads just watched. I stood seaside. Tide pirogues in front of me were rinds cast off, bubbling orange, melon, pronganut, as Jamaican pomegranates are called. Beyond this slight armada, vastness, green, blue, collaborating, Atlantic, westbound. And I remembered a scar loved by my mother a ska by Drummond, Eastern Standard Time, and I recall the poem I wrote for her, Fugue in 10 Movements, Kingston, 1975. Then came visitation from this chat I had with Tommy, Drummond's brethren, dead now. Voice as absolute and present as the sky unrolls a curtain and its fog. Cubran Tombra, trombonista, used to shuffle down to placid Kingston Harbor in crepe Dunlops near the prison, play waltzes with the waves. And when I thought of this, I thought of how self-harming and the ready sutures of the ocean could be scores if I chose so, scores not settled but turned. And so it was, I found myself at Blue Mystery miming Drummond, an imagined pork pie angle so the brim was like a Farrar pirogue's lifting arrowed prow as I shadow boxed a history and a sea, a town, a watershed, a continent behind me as I punched. Bag, body, heavyweight, or jab jab doing a juke workout. Diable, diable, grown-up devil boy. On the road to Ziguinchor, I thought, why Mom loved Drummond. Did she hear that cello sorrow in his tone? So, in the book, there's a section called the Hurricane Suite, and I was in the Providence Athenaeum on a lazy person's fellowship. And he said, we invite some artists from the state, and you're going to come in, and we get access to the archives, and I like that kind of thing, because, I get to go and kind of do something in a nothing kind of way. And I came upon these stunning photographs of Providence in two hurricanes, 1954 and 1938. And I wrote some poems in conversation with these images. And I'll read, let's read through them. So the first one is Acts 8:26-40 in dub. Ask for what you want. There's it's either an epigraph or epigram from Gregory Isaac's Storm. Cause although it's windy, not warm, Jah will guide us through the storm. Hunch is the posture of the poet. We don't stack proof in integers like spines or woodricks. A gap, we fill it, feel it, intuit, I guess. Was it Benjamin? The camera introduces us to unconscious optics. McLuhan, right? We become what we behold. Who am I out of, within, this scene of benediction? Should I ablute, lament? Back 2,000 years and change in Gaza, whiles where sand was sea, a careful Ethiopian moored his chariot, sipped on the blood script of Isaiah, reggae's ranking prophet, till Philip, sent by Hunch from Jerusalem, drew down, asked the man if he could smell and taste the words, said the seed-free plant of Candace, who does the prophet speak of, another or himself? Philip poured the eunuch draughts of Jah's promise, and as they went on their way, they came onto a certain water, and the eunuch said, see, there is water. What doth hinder me to be baptized? Teto. The flat roof is filled with folks as if it's drinks time. Woman with dark tresses presses damp against a ledge, slow eyeing Providence. Can it be? She makes it Venice. Flotsam, flotilla. Fear, reason. Leaping, flight, way far away from home. Mist and drizzles turn to buffets, then all normal snaps from roots, havoc sent to ravage, wave to wave. So it was for Wampanoag, Nipmunk, Neantic, Pequot, Narragansett, deluge colonizing, gust insults, bodies shook like canoes in crosscuts, pneumonic fear, and the drowned boy's last view, the eye. What stillness, one new God's promise of peace. Bunch. We throng on the steps to the tide, so our great grands did on docks, capstones of courses from hamlets, towns loved on by always leaving winds, damn nomad scoundrels, Tramontane, Cierso, Gregale. Oh, to herd a tide with ardor, sails full of faith, good at hunching, herb intimate fingers trade brilliant, this country's limits unlearned. We gaze, town sea made sudden, the fable of a car roof shoal, providential archipelago of grief in which a Mayan god, fellow migrant, stages monologues in cross dialects, breezes wild but ordered, shifting right to left. How do I depart? Someone, who knows, stutters a novena. We together mumble, whisper, blah, 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 God, accents shifting, blown of course toward the willed to be forgotten pitch of English, waffled by our great grands, tongues flecked with known shame-bearing words, argos of bias, blessings, cast worship, chant, spell, hex, grandma's grit language, blind the evil eye. This was nearly the cover of the book. The sea and its creatures. To the many Cape Verdeans and Cape Verdean descendants in Rhode Island and in Providence in particular. Cousin from Prairie, fellow islander, war fragment. Grog me as this shot of cars in flood dissolves to whales. For this is what binds us here, the sea and its creatures, islands mark limits, hem shore. Lavish recognizer, comma from a stranded necklace off the Guinea coast. Your kin made comfort in Nantucket's parable, relied on song and salt for ease. Salt smell, ambitions analgesic, crystals healing what migration gutted fish by fish. From those who came before, you learned a quidneck, marshes, coves, and harbors, winds that go still of a sudden, then like whale spare or mourner, death tinge plunge. Guinea remnant, I slave blood. All England took was new, so I citizen. No shaft nor barb in I conscious. There's reggae, Jonah, whale. It's with them I myth travel. The math of hunting proves blunt ethics, bone, flesh, oil, indifference if interest compounds. Once in a dream, your kin mid-cut sensed human, sliced tender, hurried but keen. And I, before I even knew I would be I, came groggy. Glory, glory, glow. Take a look in the upper right-hand corner of that image, please. Trouble on the road again. Tucked back, even prints have sculleries, poles skulk on silver, ideograms of slash, crack, hoisting, spray can slang for post. All this water-free for sacramental using in this state with plantation in its name. Yet no warner's voice keens up to say, come baptize this place again. Let our great, great, great grand chattel carry on. Foreground, futures wade carmired, concocting, coming through. Legend. Full and ripply, supple like you had no bones, you swashed down Main Street naked and they watched. In pics you're thick and muddy, gossip had it you were loud. Seriously show out like that in Georgia, you would cue good blues, but up south has no love for thick, dark women busting out. What if I write a lyric, witness falsely, just go sprawling with the truth, sing, I saw your chattahooching, how you ran this goddamn town. Aftermath. Gel tears fill my corneas, no contacts in yet, life blurs. I need to quit back coffee. The print I look at now, nose to paper, in the waiting trembles like a sail, stuttering canvas, or a Polaroided fan up into color out of gray. Bless the SX70, fold up, fold down thing, so yoga origamic. Quick snap and a cartoon flattened insect is a camera come to life. I'm half dissolved to Kingston, maybe 72, tooling some neighbors, cousins, neighbors' camera in our small, well-planted yard. Short pants for age and not weather. I'm shooting made-up soldiers in a TV-triggered war. Lime tree, armored, spiky. Hardwood, almond, satellited with green patrolling eyes. The acerolas set off squibs, stow color. Dog perks, I wag prints. Then inside, in storm season, when sun would hit and hold a vocable, diminish it to palms together leaves, and we tuck in from porch and batten, flabbergasted mongrel too, no current, louvers tight as hatches, outside rumoring like war, caught, water, rationed, the candles for the duppy them eked out, mine always at the ready, ratchet knives. Lenses in now, vision up. Outside a mill, a village, and a valley thick with conifers, made plaid by window grids. The print steadies, agitation fixed. Who can miss the lintels? Brows astonished, history hidden in plain sight, that repeated adventitious Irish name, and then people, people, tall set in the windows, brows and pupils, eyes. What does the hurricane teach us? The house locked like a theater, my senses on alert and me projecting, passing time. My siblings may be doing their own mysterious things. The boom of blown pawpaws, fashion cannons. Genies came from zinc sheets sailing whoosh. The wind's pitch of furnace dragoned. When a cable fell, it hissed. Aftermath. To boy who shot Polaroids, counting every blessing after wrath was done. And I have 2 more poems if I have your permission to do so. Good. All right. So, as you hear from my accent, I'm Jamaican. So I'm Jamaican by birth. I am American by citizenship. And I'm proudly Trinidadian by divorce. My mother-in-law, Janet Fouché, is a great, great old-time grandma. You know, kind of grandma who has proverbs and parables. And, she did the most important thing that a mother-in-law should do, which is to keep her son-in-law's blood pressure slightly up, right? And she would take care of the children, right? And then she got ALS. Took her a while before she passed. Now, one of the great things about Janet Fouché is that Janet Fouché could use the word ting to mean anything. So you come home, and my son's name is Makonnen, his sister's name is Addis, and she said, Colin, all Makonnen doing today is tinging his sister. He tinga, and she started ting he back, and he got so ting. And I knew everything she meant, right? She's also a great cook. And one of her best meals was what Trinidadians call pilau, which is like pilaf, which is like paella, you know, some ricey thing with some meaty ting and ting. So there's always chicken in it, and under ideal circumstances, the head of a rooster is in there. Yes. All the kinness in foil shrouds. And we all know what roti is, right? A kind of Indian flatbread. It's now endemic in the Caribbean, you know. It's been a couple of 100 years, so, you know. All the kinness in foil shrouds for Janet Fouché. And she was a telephone operator at the famous days in New York, 10th Avenue and like 57th Street, where when you kind of on the come up in music, that's where you stay when you come to New York. So everybody has passed through there. She was one of the telephone ladies. Hello, Daisy, blah, blah, blah. All the kinness in foil shrouds. You call tilapia snapper's cousin, kingfish, in-law like to shark. You style Jamaican zealous with ginger, lax to mash all spice, good bad though with soup, but all you do provisions clumsy. Yam ain't cut up like the meat. Jan love, now you're silent, braising in respect, hat-lidded, eyes in owlish glasses, sclerotic wings crisscrossed. True grand, nomad for the youth them, gypsy cabba to track meets, recitations, sweetie cupboard in the purse. We hush toward your casket, file the wooden pews, soto, organ, voce, cane field, rhythm, thudding out. When God dished you gerrigs, you took worship for the halt and stayed the hobble. Said the drugs would make you dunce. Now here you lie in garnish, room reserver at the motor inn, checked out. If I go to the after banquet, I may toast you. Gourmandize while ruing, nod thanks for cuckoo, warm when offered, all the kinness in foil shrouds, roti skins, transparent caskets I leave with, the odor of belonging in my hair, prick crown of jerk, of curry, of escovitch and gungu, of sorrel and white rum, mother of my no longer wife. Death vexes, I long to fight with you. Boy, bigger cock than you does crow and end up in my pillow. Last poem, I did a residency in the Berkshires at the Clampitt House. The first thing I did when I went, maybe the second thing I did, I went to the police station. It's a Combo Police, it's in Lenox, Massachusetts. Went to the Combo Police Station fire station to speak to the police. Why? Well, I wanted to avoid a situation in which a neighbor may see a strange person going into a house, and that would be the introduction. So I went to the police station, basically to turn myself in, proactively. But, you know, I kind of did it on the sly. So when I go, hello, hi, how are you? Listen, I am new to the area. I'm staying on this street at that house. I don't know where to get groceries. Can you tell me where I can get groceries, right? And he said, well, you know, there are two places you could go to. Go down here, go down there, this is that. And I said, oh, that's so nice. And I said, I'm thinking of things that will make me seem most benign. I said, is there somewhere where I can buy flowers, you know? Yeah, well, yes, actually. And I said, what is your name? And he told me his name, and his last name is that of a famous actor, right? And I said, oh, like so-and-so. He stared at me blankly. Had never heard of that Oscar-winning actor from the 70s who made all kinds of movies. And you know what? It was nice. One day, I was driving a little bit too quickly, and I saw ahead of me a police car, cruiser, right? The SUV ones. So I pulled in. I got in my car, and a light was on my dashboard saying that the tire was inflated. And I said, hello, officer. It was the same man. I said, listen, I'm looking for some place where I can pump my tire, because he says, oh, I know the place. Follow me. Puts his lights on, makes a U-turn, and is speeding. And I catch up with him. We go to the police station, which is with the Cullman Fire Station. He says, wait here. He goes into the firehouse, brings out the pump, pumps my tire for me. And I'm like, this is not how it's supposed to go. You know, give me a story, you know? And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. And it was one of those moments where I said, you know something? I feel like I belong here now by a simple act and simple experience of, you know what? There are a lot of nice people in the world, you know? And I'm one of them. And so is Officer Duval. So this poem is called In Fuging Wake. I used to go to the farmer's market every Saturday. And you know, there's a certain kind of farmer's market where everything is old-timey. Like, you know, there are people who are using a 19th century loom to make, and you wonder who buys this stuff, right? Right, and you know, the music and all of that, but it was so good. There was a farm, an Amish farm, and they had the best food. I really, really, really loved being in the Berkshires. So I had to write, I felt I should write a poem about it. Well, maybe the poem just came to me. Maybe that's how it went. But also Amy Clampitt, who, you know, Amy Clampitt became known as a poet late in life. Kind of like me. Kind of late in life. So, in Fuging Wake, Amy Clampitt, for you. And you know, the Berkshires has this history of very wealthy people having their cottages there, right? And then many sort of pockets of deep poverty, persistent poverty, right? And it reminds me of the Caribbean, like places like Anguilla, where Anguilla is a place where many wealthy people have homes, XYZ. But one is a winter place, one is a summer place, you know, kind of trade-off. So, my last poem. And can I just thank Aishan Hutchinson for inviting me, and Aishan Hutchinson for just making poems that make me want to make poems, and just for being one of the most generous writers I've ever met in my life. Could we have a round of applause for Aishan Hutchinson? Yeah, please. In Fuging Wake, Amy Clampitt, for you. Casual, flitting skin off cucumbers over a wide metal bowl, catcher for the harvest from the summer market, that cosmos of virtue, jug bands, frailed banjos, picked mandolins, tomatoes as a toddler sees them midst of stars. I feel a comet trail of shiver where my sternum is, that bone high school posters flat out to a Roman sword, but dug up horrors prove as dropping bombs. I know it's nothing serious which worries. I'm known to be pulled along and flipped in Fuging Wake. It's good this happened at the sink, at evening with time before the white flock orchestra descends, the grass drifts through the shrub maze of picnickers and their picnics on Tanglewood's lawn, shed-bound, music in hand and jaw muscles, the old estate spellcast as something sacral near Kripalu's mount where stone hips cleave. I'll be here in the back with maples, oaks, or birches, cross-legged with chacolina for as long as I can bear, cut jeans on the blue quilt gifted by a poet from Oaxaca to embrace my then small children when I wasn't home. And here I am, not home again, months here at this cottage in this rumple range terrain, summer homestead of phantasmal ease, Shakespeare by starlight, Martha Graham's Wraithings, Mill Blood Museums, high-priced downward dogs, and all year, inns in mansions, British-eyed manors, valleys with a Semitic oratory, patterned with what private cars elided from Manhattan, big gauge rail. Once I swashed about a bend as if in winter on a sled, found origin, a high rock-faced bird ferned, no curb, just bushing, then rode so thin my silver comet must have singed that low stone fence, stacked with logic like dry wood, marker for the sheer fall to an olive river chilling 20 feet below, just lazy, just shiftless, not wanting to be Hudson or Mackenzie, Zambezi, Ob, Huanghe, Porus, or Nile, unambitious, but with hint in watermark, it often spites, cussing like my petty Rio Grande does through what we scale-exempt Jamaicans call a gorge, look good in the bushing, the bevel cut for rail. This flesh in its not greenness comets me in slow arc to a beach in Anguilla, a place rolled and sprinkled with hotels, empire's latest quest. Cane nor cotton rooted here despite keratoconic oversight. Oh, the whipped when healed have keloids, so the catting doesn't work so well if those who love them don't know Braille. Bless fingerprints, we tell our food by skin. In this Eel Island's shallows, the skin of recollection peels, everts leisure, flips the calendar of ease. Winter is Antillean frolic season. Here, August blisters quick in air too damn sun strong. The comas by the like it's Eid in the Sahara by religion close hotel, obscene. My swim wake churns the clear surf. To translucence it is spoiled. Who dreamed this shiver of villas, prompts of fins, this pastiche of Latin sails, good stranding here alone? It feels ablative, if there's such a word. I'm shy to pair my clothes. Though I understand this multilingual archipelago as accident and tectonics and coral and science and motion and woof, though I know plumb flight from here to my own island's all-inclusive cuffed north coast is 900 mash miles, I feel indulgent, touristic, bathing naked here in Windsor Castle's sea. Is it politics, asemics, ghost marks on my skin? There's heat etch on my corneas as I drift purse-eyed, slow turn in this gourd flesh-tinted sea as cool as, each cliche is intaglio, and there's always room and need to shave, as cool as one can be while getting palmed by that translucence one rasps, its frilling longwise into waves collapsing in a wide bowl in the Berkshires, basin-filled hill province of the Baronesque, of country folk and writers, Hawthorne, Wharton, Melville, Du Bois. In this unremodeled kitchen cooked a modest poet of indecent skill, Clampitt, who blossomed late and in profuse language, her labyrinths from this simple home, breath hitching as the gardens Beatrix Jones Farrand baroqued for Wharton at the Mount. For now, and months to come, I'm Berkshire too, I am Bass Lake, escarpment stroll, bay horses grazing long-necked red barn on the rise, as well the grandfathered split rail fence, facets glinting, the village with the Lansing church, the felt common. I'm the hulled town street pill gloomed, the plein air philharmonic, the market bounty gemmed, the... Did a fox scurch by my window or a cat? On a hike, a black dog rushed me while its owner stayed off leash. And I knew I'd kick it if it lunged, and it did, and I did not. A statement is a story, a salad of precisely mandolined ingredients dressed up. And what if I were celeried, mustarded, mayonnaised, things I do not like? At Tanglewood, mosquitoes will chorus, picnickers will gnat, and I will camp on my alfombra. The story of me here, saladed, tremble like a kite on sound's current, belly in halving light to galactic fireflies, the cosmos, way far up in the stuttering constellations swoon. The shake at breastbone in the kitchen, the work of self-yeast as much as sparked comet, a rise to infinite in gratitude, forgiveness, in terror, in faith, high as a cello in the red realm, lished. Thank you. Yes, I answer all questions. I give counseling. I know the numbers for the Powerball. Here we go. And if you have a two-part question, break it in half and give one to a friend. Yeah, it's the best way. Yeah. Tell us the name of the actor. Robert Duvall. Yes. Yes, Officer Duvall didn't. He was like, no, okay. Yes.
I'll preface. 2006 Honda Accord with a 5-speed and 192,000 miles. You have to tell us what you drive.
I drive a very, very boring car now because the car I love to speed in, it was unable to carry on, and I drive a very practical Subaru that I love. I think I got it last year. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What else?
Could you talk about, how, so many of your poems in this book superimpose these landscapes,
Mm-hmm.
Rhode Island and the Berkshires
Mm-hmm.
and the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
I just love to hear you talk more about how you see them coming together. Those amazing hurricane photos are obviously one example.
Right. So one of the reasons the book is called Console has to do with the way in which the audio mixing board, the audio console in reggae is used to make what's called dub. You get the A side of a record, and then you use the faders to take aspects of it out, right? And then you remix it, right? And you use techniques like echo reverberation, phasing, right? To shift notions of time and space, right? So with that, working like people like Lee Scratch Perry, people like Keith Hudson, people like Augustus Pablo, gave me a kind of framework and an understanding from growing up in Jamaica that you can crossfade and mix, right? Because, and you see it also, it's also part of the essayistic mind, right? The idea that every digression leads to something that's kind of connected, right? So I think it comes out of that, and I sort of gave myself over to some of the aesthetic values of dub, right? Like people like King Tubby. And so with that, I found it an interesting and unintimidating creative process to make these links. Yeah, thank you. Yes. Oh, so, yeah?
Thank you. So my name is Winnie Bell. I was wondering, did all of the poems that you read today come from one book?
Yes, that one over there. Yeah.
Because like there are so many different varied topics, I wonder if there is like a central audience that you write for, and like.
Yeah, me. I mean, I'm saying, but here the thing is, this is that to quote the philosopher Shaka Khan, "I'm every woman, it's all in me," right? So I mean, we are all multitudes. One of the things that can link the various is voice and sensibility, right? So voice and sensibility links is something overarching and run to the poems, right? I once did a chart to see what I did, like let's geographies, forms, and I could sort of see what I did sort of after the fact, right? I mean, if we think of, some of the major roots of poetry in spells, in chants, in prayer, right? That there is a kind of metaphysical logic in these forms, right? So I think in tuning into that, right? Why does abracadabra make sense? Magic, right? Why, you fall and you run to your parents and kiss a boo-boo. It's magic. It feels better, right? So I think that I trust the impulse of poetry, which is something ancient, right? And a deep part of our humanity. And for me, voice can connect anything. Just think of the many things you say to different people every day. So, some of them have nothing to do with each other, but your voice is what connects them, and your sort of humanity and your perspective and sensibility. Yeah? Aishan?
Oh, well, you sort of answered it when what you just said, because I was thinking about the essayistic mind, which certainly is in the poetry, but you didn't start with poetry, right?
No.
It was fiction
for a long time, yes.
Yeah. It's a very basic question about the transition, or even if it's a transition.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's more fun on the poetry side of things in life. I mean, fiction writers always look stressed. They always look stressed, right? Because for me, right, I'm creatively reckless, right? And so I have a very high tolerance for failure and for self-deprecation. And as there's a kind of resilience with that, I will go into anything and so see how it goes. I had so many good friends who were poets, and they always seemed to just have more fun together. I was like, wow, like, geez. So one of them in particular, I remember speaking to Kwame Dawes. I said, Kwame, when you write a book, like a collection, how many poems do you need? Right? He said, for you need like 80 pages. I'm like, how many poems is that? He says, like, 40 to 60, maybe, it depends. I said, okay. He said, like, how many to get to 80 pages? Like, how many pages? He said, for me personally, like about 300. Well, my fiction writer's mind said, well, so what do you do with the rest that you don't use? I said, I'll buy them from you 20 cents on the dollar, and I can have an okay book of poems, and then you can have a great book of poems. And we laughed. He said, you know what, Colin, you could write poetry if you wanted to. I said, really? He said, yeah, you can see it in your work. There's a sensibility that's there. And on a dare, I kind of did it, right? But I'd always read poetry. That's the thing, right? And I've always liked prose writers who are stylists, right? So, and I think I had a kind of ear tuning which I'm now, I grew up to realize was part of it. Like, I would, in a sport, pick the worst athlete if they had a good name. Right. Business, of course. Or, so there was something, a kind of ear awareness that was always there. In writing poetry, it was very, very difficult. The bar for language is so much higher. And it wasn't until I started doing it that I realized, Jesus Lord, but I stuck with it, and then different parts of my mind, it seemed, became sort of animated and also reassured, right? So now when I write, I feel confident that I can feel what I'm doing. I don't have to understand it. And I think that is a significant transition for me, going, okay, I can. It was like when I started playing music. I started playing music at about the age of 40, and in 3 months had a band. Everybody are real musicians, but I'm just that dedicated. I will just do it, and fail at doing it. Started playing in bands, and I remember the stages where I had to play standing still with my eyes closed. I get distracted. Then I could play opening my eyes. Then I could play rocking a little bit. Then I could play dancing. When I knew I was a real musician, once I didn't know what a song was, and I walked over to somebody and asked them while playing. All right, cool. And I'm like, I'm doing it, right? So that's how it is in poetry now, where I can see big picture, small picture, mid picture, upside down, crossways. I can see it or even not see it and just feel my way through it. And I rely on language to carry me. And it carries me into some interesting places, I scat poetry a lot. I just go like a songwriter, and then the lyric comes, right? So it may not be the best recommended way to do it. MFA students, please listen to what your professors tell you. I'm an amateur at this. I got lucky, but this is what works for me,